South Carolina, 19th ranked. Frank Martin and his squad are going to have to try to stop Antonio Blakeney. Easier said than done.
The kid can do it any way you want it. In transition is when he is best. Good luck doing that against the Gamecocks.
And he has to score often, but I think he will be guarded by Darius Thornwell, who will take his legs and make him play defense on the other end.
Well, you asked, you brought him up, so let's go ahead and show him Mr. Thornwell. This team has played a lot different since he got back on that circuit.
Well, he brings what Pat and I always talk about. He brings experience to the game. He knows how to play both sides of the ball, one of the best two-way players in this conference.
Does it all for them, whatever they need, score, defend, be the leader. It starts with him and it ends with him.
Thornwell, 20.4 points in his last 5 games. And all right, got about a minute until we kick it back down to Baton Rouge. If you're Johnny Jones, right here, right now, Pat Bradley, what are you telling your guys before they're playing a team that might have a little more talent than them right now?
I don't know if he can tell them anything that he hasn't already told them throughout this year. It begins, gentlemen, with defending the perimeter, and then you got to help out your big guys. Duapreeve, keep him in the game. He gives them the offense they need.
He does.
But you cannot allow South Carolina dribble penetrations going to kill them.
I think the game will be close. Got to make sure they don't allow South Carolina to get out in transition. South Carolina really wants to play in the half court, so LSU got to prevent the transition, play good defense, and let's hope Blakeney has a good game.
Last 5 games, we'll see it from three-point land. Last 5 opponents, South Carolina has held their opponents to less than 20% from three-point land. Will be interesting to see. Ooh. Tom Hart and his stubble, and Damian Fishback got the call right now.
Mr. Burns, thank you, and thanks for paying attention to my Instagram account. Number 19, South Carolina, on the road in Baton Rouge here at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. Tom Hart alongside Damian Fishback. The guys talked about it. South Carolina's heart and soul is their senior leader, Darius Thornwell, who can beat you in a variety of ways.
Well, he is a treat to watch. Let's take a look at him. Darius Thornwell, very deliberate and deceptive off of the bounce. Look at him dribble and get to the rim. That's one piece of his game. And look at him, dangerous in the open floor was his ability to finish. Look at that Earl the Pearl spin and soft touch. So much heart, exemplifies his coach, Frank Martin. And yeah, he's got a skill set too. Long ball from long distance. You will not find a better senior in this conference than Darius Thornwell. And you look at the numbers since the games he started.
Yeah, he'll set a school record when the ball goes in the air tonight with his 118th career start in this South Carolina team that is 7-1 in the league. Thornwell may be a finalist for League Player of the Year, in South Carolina in the thick of an SEC title race behind Kentucky. Those are the men with the whistles. They work it inside to Silva, and he's able to get an easy look from up close. South Carolina has done it all season with their defense. Not only the best in the SEC, one of the best in all of college basketball. Blakeney forced to give it up. Silva overplays the passing lane, and LSU able to recover. Touch pass inside, and it's lost by LSU and back to South Carolina. South Carolina coming off of a 10-point win Saturday at Missouri. Meanwhile, LSU has lost 7 in a row. In the SEC Big 12 Challenge, they lost by 13 over in Lubbock against Texas Tech. The freshman Kotsar with the drive, lost his footing, and he turns it over.
Tom, you know, yesterday in practice, it was probably 90% of the practice that Coach Johnny Jones and LSU spent on the defensive end. It was much better than I'd seen in the past. Better communication, better activity, better action. He said they have to win in the film room, win in practice, and then those small wins will turn into big victories on the floor as well.
I know Johnny Jones had a big win when he walked off the practice court today. He hit a 3 in your eye. He said, "I still got it." And he strutted back to the locker room.
A lot of rim on that 3, though. A lot of rim.
Aaron Epps with the foul. That's his first and LSU's first. South Carolina offensively scores about 72 points a game. They're not a great perimeter shooting team. What do they do well in the half court on offense?
Well, offensively, that's where they need to continue to improve, frankly. I mean, they're good enough defensively, we know, but their ability to advance to the next level in the tournament, as you see a nice backdoor cut by Darius Thornwell, will depend on that right there, the half-court execution time.
Thornwell had 24 in this matchup last year. He went to the free throw line 14 times in that game. Overplays the passing lane again. Gambled. Blakeney beat him, and they get a mid-range jumper that's too strong, and it's ripped down by P.J. Dozier. Dozier all the way. Coach Sarr off the offensive glass, and he'll go to the line with the foul on Epps. It'll be the second on Aaron Epps. Frank Martin, 7-1 in conference play. Best start in his time in Columbia. This is a South Carolina program, remember, that hasn't won a conference title since Eddie Fogler, Melvin Watson, and B.J. Mackey were leading the team back in 1997, 20th anniversary. Rob Reith on the floor for LSU now. Epps has to take a seat with 2. And Elbert Robinson in early.
Coach Johnny Jones said that he would bring Robinson in. Wanted to try to match up some big bodies against South Carolina. Bang on those guys on the paint a little bit.
Coach Sarr off the glass. This is an LSU team that has started this game 0 for 2 with a turnover. And now South Carolina returns a favor and turns it right back over. Johnny Jones in his 5th season at LSU. They went to the NCAA tournament his 3rd year, trying to solve a 7-game losing streak and 1-7 in the league. Defensively, they've been vulnerable to giving up runs. Beautiful back cut, and at the rim, Patterson lays it in for his first bucket and the first for the Tigers.
Always good to see the basketball go through the net. I like the pace of this game, frankly, early for LSU. South Carolina, like you said, wants to keep this score down. LSU likes the 70s and 80s.
LSU 23rd in the nation in tempo. Another foul inside. Well, South Carolina's 208th in adjusted tempo, according to Ken Palm. Brandon Sampson with his first foul. 3rd team foul.
Well, and this guy at the free throw line, Chris Silva, has made substantial jumps from one year to the next. I mean, his ability to develop is a staple of Coach Frank Martin. His guys get better. You look at Chris Silva, P.J. Dozier. He's doing the same thing that he did when he was at Kansas State.
Silva out of Roselle Catholic in Roselle, New Jersey, played with Tyler Roberson, who's now at South Carolina. Of course, Isaiah Briscoe, you know, at Kentucky. And Malachi Richardson, who's now with the Kings, who also went the Syracuse route. Roberson, pardon me, at Syracuse. It's a pretty good run. And by the way, Roselle, New Jersey also had a guy by the name of Greg Cook back in the day. There was nobody tougher than the late Greg Cook, according to Johnny Jones. Wayne Otis gives it up. Here's Dozier. Transition 3. Got it. Big time 3 by the sophomore from Columbia.
Yeah, offense looking a lot better. Struggled a little bit at Missouri. We know Missouri, though, a very good defensive team, just struggles on offense. But here today, South Carolina playing some efficient basketball on the offensive end.
They made 3 of their 4 shots, including that lone one from behind the arc from Dozier. Sampson spins his way into the paint. There's always a Gamecock there to help, it seems. Including Kotsar right there, able to cut off Antonio Blakeney. South Carolina's not a team that runs a lot, but they're good when they do.
Well, they are, and they secure the defensive rebound first. And then as you get back, looks like Dozier actually got away with a double dribble, but a nice job of giving the basketball up and getting it right back. That's something else that Coach Frank Martin's team always display, is an unselfishness on the offensive end.
That personal foul is on P.J. Dozier. Elbert Robinson, the 3rd at the free throw line for LSU. Just 39% from the line this season. But he makes the first, and the junior from Garland, Texas, goes 1 of 2. Dozier missed the Kentucky game. He was out after suffering back spasms. It's a great comeback from South Carolina. Made it interesting at Rupp a couple Saturdays ago. Here's Kotsar out to Dwayne Otis. Otis rattles one home.
Huge.
He is known for his defense. If he can provide shots like that, South Carolina will be tough to beat.
Well, he was a tremendous offensive player his freshman year. He and Sindarius Thornwell, I think, one of the better freshman combinations, and they've just been here forever and continue to improve.
He's one of the best defensive players in all of college basketball. We'll share those numbers with you. He comes away with a steal, feeds Dozier, and there's Silva on the glass, and Silva gets fouled. South Carolina going to the line a lot here early. It's a 9-point lead for the Gamecocks on the road in the SEC.
Earning your cash back shouldn't be this complicated. Yet some cards limit where you earn bonus cash back to a few places and then change those places every few months. Enough with that. With Quicksilver from Capital One, you always earned unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, everywhere. Welcome to Unlimited. What's in your wallet?
What's it like to be in good hands? Like finding new ways to be taken care of.
Home, car, life insurance, obviously. Oh.
But with added touches you can't get everywhere else, like claim-free rewards?
Or safe driving bonus checks. Oh, yes.
Even a claim satisfaction guarantee.
In means protection plus unique extras. Only from an expert Allstate agent.
It's good to be in good hands.
I love shopping for my pets at Chewy.com. They have everything I could possibly need for my pets at amazing prices. I love these guys, and I want to feed them the best. When I wanted to change Bailey's diet, I was surprised by the price of his new food. Then I found Chewy.com. With Chewy, I save on food, treats, and litter. Even shipping is free. There's no reason for me to shop anywhere else.
Save 20% on your favorite brands and get fast, free shipping. Shop online at Chewy.com.
It's a great start for the 19th-ranked Gamecocks, up 12-3 on LSU. Welcome to Baton Rouge. Tom Hart alongside Damian Fishback. South Carolina's defense gets a lot of attention. We'll tell you more about it in a moment, but their offense is off to a great start tonight.
Yeah, offensively they're playing sensational basketball, but Jimmy Dykes used to always say defense travels, and that's obvious with this South Carolina team. You look at them the way they rank amongst the nation, just phenomenal basketball thus far.
They have dominated the SEC defensively. The only team that had a good game against them was Kentucky, their only loss. So these are the SEC rankings. They only allowed 61 points a game. You can't get shots off against them, and the national rankings are even more impressive.
Well, when you look at how this team has gotten it done year after year, again, it reminds you of the way Kansas State used to play. And you look at some of these national rankings that we talked about as far as opponents scoring, holding them to 60 points a game, 6th in the nation, field goal percentage, 5th, 3-point percentage, they're 1st in the country, and turnovers forced, 8th in the country. And we know those are the likes of the Virginia when you talk about scoring defense that's #1. You look at teams like West Virginia that turn you over. That's the type of defense you're looking at with South Carolina.
Chris Silva at the free throw line has another one coming. You know what I did today, besides have lunch at Walk-Ons, is I dove deep into the Synergy Sports site. South Carolina is 4th in the country, allowing only 0.7 points per possession in the half court. And they want to slow you down. You get late in the shot clock. They're in the 99th percentile, allowing just 0.4 points per possession when the shot clock gets under 4, and they force a timeout here. That is vintage South Carolina defense. A 4th turnover now for LSU here in the first 4.5 minutes.
Well, and that's what Frank Martin is continuing to do now. He's continuing to add pieces of the puzzle. Your good coaches, they always continue to tweak their defense, not only throughout the game, but throughout the year. You see different things being added.
You know who impressed Frank Martin as a defensive player when Frank Martin was in high school in Miami? A guy by the name of Tommy Amaker. Went to a Final Four with Duke as a freshman. Of course, is now the head coach at Harvard and has done a tremendous job there from a recruiting perspective as well. He said, I never knew you could play defense like that, pick him up at the half-court line, just like Dwayne Notice is doing here, and really be in a guy's face. Saw Amaker playing in a high school tournament up in the Northeast and said, I don't know who that guy is, but I like the way he plays D.
Well, when you think about all of your quality teams, I mean, Virginia went into Villanova, thought they were going to get that win earlier, but Villanova did a good job of really streaming back. Sensational job, but when you have defense, it gives you an opportunity night in and night out, and that's what we're seeing in the Gamecocks.
TaMarcus Blanton on the floor for the first time for South Carolina. And we get a 3-second call against LSU. That's another turnover. That's the 5th for the Tigers in the first 5 minutes plus. And it's the reason Johnny Jones' team has found itself in a 13-point hole here early. They've turned it over on 3 consecutive possessions. Now that's a specialty of South Carolina. They turn opponents over 17 times a game. That's 8th best in the country. Asani grab it with a handoff for Thornwell. Dozier will jack it up with 8 on the clock. Grab it on the glass, and he's able to reverse it in.
Wow. Very impressive. Not only the way that they're defending, but the bounce that they have in their step. They're playing for something bigger than just a win here on the road against LSU right now.
Another denial. That time it's Blanton 3-on-1. Thornwell to grab it. Oh, wow. Couldn't flush it, but he was up there. And that's a South Carolina team playing with confidence on the road.
Playing with confidence, a sense of urgency. You love that from the start. Here we go. Look at this, just getting after the loose ball to Marcus Blanton. And, you know, Coach Frank Martin said that he was playing with a hurt hip, a guy who had a very difficult injury early in his career. That's the type of energy that you expect and want to see if you're Coach Martin.
Blakeney rises but can't get it to go, and the rebound lost by South Carolina. Rakim Felder has checked into the game. Dwayne Notice is so good defensively. Some of his numbers rank among the best in all of college basketball. Here he is trapping with the freshman Kotsar.
Yeah, take a look. You got 2 defenders here, okay? But you also have that sideline that's defending as well. So when you have 2 defenders on that sideline, it's actually like 3 defenders. That's why he has to call the timeout. He has nowhere to go. He is surrounded, and it's a nice job by the Gamecocks.
You know what you just drew? You just drew an upside-down happy face, which is kind of like a flag in distress. Sims inside. You would be an upside-down happy face if you got caught there with 2 defenders on the sideline. Johnny Jones has gone deep into his bench here in the first 7 minutes. There's a 4.5-minute drought nearly for LSU. Asani grab it. Nope. And it's brought down by Brian Bridgewater. Seen some early run here tonight for LSU. Seems like Johnny's he's just in that spot right now. He's just trying to find the right combination, get guys in the floor who can play as they score on back-to-back possessions. Skylar Mays with the triple. Yeah,
the freshman from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that's won state tournament here, 2014 and 15, has been a leader, and it's another leader right here in Antonio Blake.
Thornwell with the rebound. Antonio Blake really pushing to try and make something happen. After LSU has scored on consecutive possessions and they came away with a steal. Got the lead down to 10. Kotsar, shot clock's at 2. They got to put it up. Felder will fire. And Thornwell on the glass. 4 for Thornwell, who would be second in the SEC in scoring behind Malik Monk if he had enough games to qualify. Remember, he missed 6 games, and the Gamecocks lost 3 out of their 4 games when he was suspended. Another steal. This is the senior, Sindarius Thornwell again.
Coach Johnny Jones, you have got to get a timeout, and he calls a timeout. Sindarius Thornwell, he is the definition of a complete player. Look at him, toughness, exhilarating. A young man wants to win, and the Gamecocks right now up big on the road.
I like about you. The way you do what you do, how you do. I like about.
Nobody played more minutes or hit more big shots when Alex English finished his career in a South Carolina basketball uniform. English averaged a double-double with 22 points and 10 rebounds a game in 1976, leading South Carolina to retire his number. Known as a prolific scorer in the NBA, English led the league in scoring in the 1980s and was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1997. SEC Network celebrates Alex English's contributions to his sport in the University of South Carolina.
At Regions Bank, we're here to help you move your life forward. But managing money correctly can be tough, especially for college students. That's why we sometimes bring in some extra help.
Young lady, you are way too smart to hit that order button. $750 on a dress that'll be out of style by next week? And what, you might wear it 2, 3 times tops?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I probably am right.
Regions, official bank of the SEC.
SEC Network Basketball is brought to you by the Quicksilver Card from Capital One. Earn unlimited 1.5% cash back every purchase, everywhere. And AT&T. Big fella Shaq doing some damage. We'll tell you about the All-time greats here at LSU a little bit later in the broadcast. This is an all-time great performance by South Carolina. They're in the thick of an SEC title race. They lost their only matchup with Kentucky, so they need the Cats to lose twice, but they proved last night anything's possible. That great Georgia performance at Rupp. Thornwell's been their leader and not slacking off tonight.
Well, the young man said the best advice that he ever received was to take advantage of every opportunity. And that's what he's done tonight, whether it's on the offensive glass, whether it's getting out into the passing lane, the ability to finish in transition. He really has displayed what LSU is missing, which is leadership. And that's why they struggled with Sindarius Thornwell out of the game. And that's why since he's been back, they only have one loss on the entire season.
Perfect shooting and a steal. 7 turnovers forced by South Carolina. 10 points scored off of them. What a difference in the two programs, by the way. We were talking to Frank Martin a couple weeks ago. He said Sindarius Thornwell will impact this program for years to come because he learned when he was a freshman how he needed to work, how hard he needed to work to be successful at this level. And then he's passed it down to the guys below him, guys like P.J. Dozier, Chris Silva, and the like. LSU, to be quite frank, didn't have that leadership last year. And they don't have that leadership this year because they're such a young team. So that lesson seemingly hasn't been learned by the guys in the home whites tonight.
It's what makes what Coach Cal does every year so impressive. You know, he's got a few veterans this year. When you look at a guy like Willis coming back and Hawkins, but at the end of the day, the best way for players to learn is by watching somebody older than them do it.
Next Tuesday night on the SEC ESPN Network, another college hoops doubleheader for you. 6:30 Eastern, Alabama will take on these 19th ranked Gamecocks, and at 8:30 Vandy and Arkansas meet in Fayetteville. Both games streaming live on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. Skylar Mays knocks down 1 of 2.
That'll be 2 quality games when you look at Alabama and South Carolina, both sensational on the defensive end, and then Arkansas and Vanderbilt both like to put it up from behind the three-point line.
LSU playing with renewed energy on the defensive side. You can see Brandon Jenkins playing great D. Here's Felder, the Brooklyn native, and he splashes one down for Kim Felder. The senior Bridgewater gets inside. And it's brought down by Kadeem Gay on the floor for the first time for South Carolina. Felder left wide open.
So what you're watching for right here on the LSU side is effort, is composure, is poise against this harassing defense, especially down here at home. They need this crowd to get behind them. More importantly, they have got to get some stops on the other end of the floor.
LSU 3 for 10 from the floor. They've turned it over 7 times. That's what South Carolina will do to you. Justin Mackey with the board for South Carolina. Frank Martin with this large lead has been able to go deep to his bench. Felder thought he was hot, and Frank Martin says you're not. We'll see P.J. Dozier in a moment. Patterson and LSU turn it over for the 8th time in the first 10 minutes. Silva returns, Dozier returns.
And Tom, that's a prime example. When you face South Carolina, they are not going to allow you to run your sets. Coach Johnny Jones told his team, he stopped them multiple times and said, that's not going to be there. It's not going to be that easy. But just like it's hard to really display a team's size or their quickness or athleticism, it's difficult to try to show what the defense of South Carolina is going to be like until you face it.
Notice. Got it. He's got 5 here early. And look at Dwayne Notice picking up at half court on Skylar Mays. I had a great conversation with Dwayne before the game tonight. I said, where did you learn to play defense? How did you learn? He said, you know what? I got to prep school at St. Thomas More in Connecticut. We had practices where there wasn't any balls on the floor. We would go for an hour. We'd just work on defensive slide. We'd work on positioning. And Synergy Sports says that Dwayne Notice is one of the best defenders in all of college basketball. This is against his man, 99th percentile. He allows a half a point per possession. Folks, there aren't very many in all of college basketball who do that. He only allows his opponent to shoot 25% against him, and he turns them over on a regular basis. I mean, this is perhaps the least appreciated player in the SEC for what he does defensively. And he's just one piece of this great defensive team as Notice comes out of there with the rebound. Feeds Dozier. Skips to Thornwell. And they are playing as one. Here's Notice turning the corner. Little teardrop. Drop top. Yes! And he's going to the free throw line.
Did I hear teardrop, drop top, Tom?
Yeah, you should see what my iPhone has in my music mix these days. That was the first, and Kieran Hayward.
Well, look, LSU, my challenge with LSU right now is that, again, what we talked about, not down in the stance, not moving like they need to be. And you talked about the defense of the Dwayne Notice. You know, we had signing day in the SEC as far as football goes. He sets the tone. He's the nose guard. He's the center in football for this team. As soon as you cross half court, he's the first guy you have to deal with.
Wait, today was signing day? How come there wasn't any coverage of it?
You didn't see any all day, did you?
I missed it. South Carolina sitting in the zone. They play zone about 8% of the time. Deep three. Wow, Skylar Mays, how about you? Product of U High just down the road here in Baton Rouge. His second triple of the night. Here's Kotsar. Dozier gets it to fall in.
And P.J. Dozier can get that anytime that he wants. We talked about the improvement of Sindarius Thornwell throughout his career. T.J. Dozier, one of the most improved players in the conference this year.
Brandon Sampson is able to bank it in, and he'll be at the free throw line when we return. Number 19, South Carolina, in the thick of this SEC race with the lead here amongst greats. We'll tell you what 2 down, 1 to go means when it comes to statues here in Baton Rouge.
Friday Night Heights. Perfect balance. High-flying precision. Elite competition.
How about that? The 10 comes in. Wow, what a night.
This week, the 10th-ranked Wildcats take on the 9th-ranked Bulldogs. Then, the 3rd-ranked Gators meet the 6th-ranked Tide. Kentucky, Georgia at 7, presented by Belk. Florida, Alabama at 8:30. Friday on the SEC Network.
You have a vision. It drives you. It inspires you. It's behind everything you do. Even when you least expect it, it comes through. You know what you want, and we can help make it real. You want choices? We've got lots. Pick a design. Make it your own. And if you get stuck, we can help. Add a special finish. Or try a premium paper. Whatever you choose, we absolutely guarantee the paper, the printing, even your design, every time, for any reason. Because you have a vision, and we have your card. 500 start at just $9.99 when you enter promo code BC500 at vistaprint.com.
Welcome back to Baton Rouge. It's a 32-14 lead for number 19 South Carolina. We're in the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. From its rafters hang the banners of Tiger greats, but outside a showcase for a couple of college basketball and all of basketball's all-time greats as we take a look at our AT&T Inside Access. The big man, Shaq, had his statue put up in 2011. Then a year ago in February, it was the great Bob Pettit's turn. Take a look at Johnny Jones' office wall. There's really the big 3 here at LSU. Of course, you've got Shaq, Pettit, and then Pistol Pete. And plans for his statue are in progress. 3 of the all-time greatest players in NBA history, 3 of the 50 greatest players. It was 47 years ago yesterday when Pistol Pete set the NCAA scoring record. Oscar Robertson's record fell with 13 games to play when Pistol Pete did it against Ole Miss. And here's my research for the day on Pistol Pete. You ready for this one? As Sampson makes it a 3-point play. Pete Maravich still holds the all-time single-game scoring mark by an opponent at 8 different schools. Alabama, Auburn, Duquesne, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tulane, and Vandy. 8 different schools. That is insane.
I mean, he's Pistol Pete. I mean, are you kidding me? Anybody who can dribble the basketball with the knees down the court. it's kind of over with that, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Passed the ball with his elbows. I mean,
he dropped 68 against the Knicks at the Superdome. 68. Here's Skylar Mays. He's got 7. Beautiful dish and a jam, but we got an offensive foul. Chris Silva, who's usually foul prone, in the right place to draw the foul on Mays, his first.
Well, I like the aggressiveness, though, by Skylar Mays. He's the one guy who's continued to show bright spots throughout this difficult stretch that LSU's been going through. Had 11 assists in their win over Houston earlier. But even since then, last couple of games, he's had 35 points. He had 22 in their loss at Arkansas. They just have to do what Rick Barnes said, play as one unit. 5 have to play as one, and that's what LSU is trying to figure out how to do now.
Well, it's incredibly obvious, especially against this South Carolina team, as Silva rolls one home, because aside from really a couple of those Rakim Felder threes, everything that South Carolina has run on both sides of the floor has been part of a team unit.
Sure.
That's the first on Dwap Reith, and it puts Chris Silva at the free throw line. Coming off of a 7-point performance in South Carolina's win on the road at Missouri. It was the 10th time South Carolina has held an opponent under 60 points this season. They held Missouri to just 1 of 17 from deep. They've been all season one of the greatest three-point percentage defenses in all of college basketball. Silva on the glass. Beautiful look. Thornwell going to the line. That's the teamwork we were talking about. The assist comes from the perimeter, and Thornwell with a chance for a three-point play.
Well, and listen, that was a tough shot by Skylar Mays. So tough shots lead to open breaks on the other end. LSU never had a chance to set their defense, and this is what South Carolina lives on, the ability to transition good defense into offense. That's a percentage of all of your quality teams.
Three-point play for Thornwell. South Carolina has assisted 7 times on its 14 made field goals. Asani Gravitt returns for the Gamecocks. And Notice gets a breather. And look, his replacement will pick up at midcourt just as Dwayne Notice did. What a great example Dwayne Notice, a senior, is for this sophomore Asani Gravitt. Nice bucket high off the glass.
Well, we know that LSU can score. So the question is, and many teams fall behind in games, the question is, do you have the ability to get consecutive stops? Can you get 3-4 stops in a row to try to dig into this lead before the half of your LSU?
Dozier, nope. And it's fought for by Bridgewater, who's able to bring down the rebound. Here's Antonio Blakeney, the affable scoring guard for LSU. Had a great chat with him at Shoot Around today. Talking great defenses. He said, man, this league's got a ton of them. Patterson off the mark.
There's another prime example. Patterson just took a shot. You can get a much better look if you continue to work this defense better.
Dozier fouled on the drive. They will count it. P.J. Dozier's got 9 here early. He's got 1 shot coming.
Well, and here it is, the defense back, but the help. And see, if you're Jalen Patterson right there, he was too concerned about his own man. And we talked to Johnny Jones about this in practice yesterday. That's the difference when you watch film on South Carolina, is how they play unselfish defensively. They're not concerned about their own man. They work as a unit. If the ball's coming, you have to step over and stop that basketball, the difference that LSU's learning tonight.
That's a great point. Just because you're playing good defense on your man doesn't mean you're playing good defense.
No question. If you get scored on, you get scored on as a team, or you get stops as a team.
And a tie-up will keep the ball right here this direction with LSU. LSU thus far has turned it over 9 times. They're shooting just 35% from the floor. Blakeney's got 16 career 20-point games, including 23 in the loss in Lubbock. That was a really tough loss for LSU. They opened the game in a zone, and Johnny had to use a timeout 90 seconds into the game. Texas Tech hit 10 threes in the first half. They only had 12 made field goals in the first half, and 10 of them came from deep. Here's a steal by Brandon Sampson, and the jam. Something positive for LSU. Back-to-back buckets for the sophomore from Baton Rouge. Silva gives it up. Shot clock at 5. Felder, the lefty, bounces to Silva, couldn't get it off. Lost the handle on it.
Got 2 consecutive stops now by LSU. See if they can get some momentum going the other way.
Sampson taking over. He's got 10. He was a top 40 recruit coming out of Madison Prep. And he's done with his defense as well as his offense.
Well, he's long, 6'5", long arms, athletic. And again, this is how you learn on the job. This is a sophomore, but he didn't play a lot of minutes last year. Really didn't get into the rotation a lot. I know he was involved around Ben Simmons and Antonio Blakeney. And so this is really like his freshman year for him.
Former Louisiana Mr. Basketball, joining the likes of Lester Earl, Marcus Fizer, Bernard King, who went to Texas A&M, Chris Duhon, Paul Millsap. State producing talent, huh? LSU on an 8-0 run. Sampson has scored all 8. And South Carolina turns it over. So, kind of simple, right? You're going to look for number 0 in this set. Well, instead, they try to push it and over the top of Bridgewater. Patterson with an ill-advised aggressive move.
You know, we laugh at that, but those plays are critical. That's momentum breakers for LSU. Now, if you're South Carolina, you don't want to allow yourself to let up either. You want to continue to execute on this end. A nice job of using the fade screen that time. Look at the poise and patience being displayed here by South Carolina on the offensive end.
Dozier turns the corner. Yes. Adam Bouger, he's got a dozen now. That was my drop-top line from earlier. I wanted to see if you were paying attention.
Yeah, well, you're bad in Bouger, so I expect you to know that,
hey,
Tom.
You know what? At halftime, I want you to explain to me what that means. Here's Antonio Blakeney, who was Florida Mr. Basketball performer. Back to Sampson. Brandon Edelson tried to keep it alive. He's getting some run here early. Wow, what a look. Silva was deep, and he's going to bank it in. Chris Silva with another chance for a 3-point play. He's into double figures. 26 of South Carolina's 44 points have come in the paint. They're scoring at will here in the first half.
I'm all that techie stuff you got crammed into your brand new car. I'm so sexy, you can't keep your hands off me. Do it again. There you go. I can do whatever you want, except keep your eyes on the road.
Now would be a good time to have new car replacement.
So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
It's good to be in good hands.
The Southeastern Conference. Yes, it means Saturday afternoon, but it also means Monday morning and Wednesday night. It definitely means geography, history, and chemistry. And sometimes it is rocket science, because in the SEC, it just means more.
Peter Burns, Tony Dell, Pat Bradley. A lot of sizzle here in the studios. We'll talk about signing day, Arkansas's big win. But what are you seeing down at the PMAC?
LSU needs to have more lateral movement to play better defense.
South Carolina has got their work hat on and it's business mode for them tonight.
Back down to Tom Hart and Damian Fishback's snazzy tie.
Hey, you should see the hats that we're wearing, guys. As you look at the SEC standings, you got 3 in the top 25, 4 in the tournament right now, according to Joe Lunardi. And South Carolina hasn't won a conference title since 1997. It's the only SEC title they own. It was a tough loss from Rupp because they only play once, so they'd need Kentucky to drop a couple for South Carolina to take them. But boy, oh boy, why not? You know what I mean? I mean, this is a team that if they play like this, who are they going to lose to in conference?
Sure. Well, and you got a Kentucky team right now that has displayed some resiliency without De'Aaron Fox in the game. I thought that was a very impressive win over Georgia. Georgia, a few heartbreakers, but Kentucky's got a tough one going to Florida in Gainesville, where that crowd will be ready. And I don't see a lot of teams beating South Carolina as they go down the stretch simply because of the way they approach the game like they're doing tonight.
College Game Day will be there on Saturday morning at the O'Connell Center. New look O'Connell Center, same sound. By the way, that was the 5th and 1 for South Carolina tonight. They've been fouled 10 times. 5 of them have been and 1s. Sampson is really feeling it. He's got 14 here in this first half, already 4 better than his average. Have you seen this before? 5 and 1s and a half? Silva trying to push towards the goal line. I think they stopped him. And not what you want to see for LSU. Their best offensive player tonight, Brandon Sampson. Slow getting to his feet. Call it a jump ball. Possession belongs to the Gamecocks. Get a sub into the game. Brandon Jenkins, a junior from Maywood, Illinois, out of the great program at Proviso East, will enter the game. And Sampson takes a seat, trying to stretch out that leg.
Good minutes by Brandon Sampson. He brought a spark to this LSU team. Oh, wow. You saw that coming.
Yes.
Nice play. Overplay. And you see Johnny Jones on the sideline displaying some frustration. He is not used to losing. Last 2 years finished in the top 3 of this league. As you mentioned, a couple years ago in the NCAA tournament, goes down to NC State that went to the Sweet 16.
Gymnastics takes over the SEC Network every Friday night this week. Number 10, Kentucky, and 9th-ranked Georgia at 7, presented by Belk. Then at 8:30, number 3, Florida, number 6, Alabama, in the Power Pink meeting, Coleman Coliseum. My guy Bart Connor will be there, along with Kathy Johnson-Clark. Dozier knocks them both down. Of course, Dee Dee Bro is the head coach of the gymnastics program here. She's got some great lines. You know, she was one of 8 kids growing up in Donaldsville, Louisiana. She said, when you're one of 8, you got to get to the dinner table. You compete for the carrots or you get the potatoes.
No doubt about it.
Dee Dee and her LSU gymnastics team, number 2 in the country. Here's Silva. Off the mark, and then a foul on the rebound. Those are the kind of fouls that Chris Silva has been committing since he stepped on campus. He has a foul rate of about 7.5 fouls per 40 minutes played. That's got to be better.
Well, and LSU has got to be better. The way they can do that is continuing on the offensive end.
There's our lady Dee Dee. Dee Dee Bro's in the house. Yes.
How about that?
She's competing for the carrots.
Got to get some more Tigers out here, right?
I think these days the kind of carrots she competes for are the kind that are measured in the jewelry store. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Well, really, Dee Dee interrupted you. But
well, you don't mind being interrupted by Dee Dee.
She's a legend. Here's Edelson inside. And first bucket for Brandon Edelson. Silva. Oh, my goodness. The tomahawk jam by Chris Silva.
Impressive on behalf of Chris Silva. Unimpressive. And a poor job defensively by LSU. You have to move. There's got to be some help with the straight line drive that time.
Blakeney. No. Sims followed jam. Yes. He's got 4. 16-point lead for South Carolina as we approach the half. Good news for LSU. They've been a much better offensive team in the second half of games. Blakeney gets by everybody. Corner 3. And look who's there to keep it alive. Quickly becoming a crowd favorite is Edelstone. Timeout, South Carolina. with an 8-second difference between the game clock and the shot clock. Next Tuesday night on the SEC ESPN Network, another doubleheader coming your way. Alabama starts with this South Carolina team at 6:30 Eastern. They're going to have a great crowd down there at Colonial Life Arena. I can tell you already. And in Vandy and Arkansas. South Carolina men's and women's teams are the only two programs in all of college basketball, the only men's and women's programs at the same school to average better than 12,000 fans a game. Even though they didn't get the whistle they wanted at the end of their game against Tennessee Monday night. That was a tough home loss for Don Staley's team. Diamond DeShields has been magnificent for Holly Warlick's Lady Vols.
Well, she's been phenomenal. You know, LSU ladies have a big one coming up, an opportunity as they face Tennessee. The question will be, though, if this LSU team continues to try to slow the pace down and limit the possessions, whether they speed it up with the Tennessee Volunteers.
That's what I love about sitting courtside with you at SEC games. I could go anywhere. We could start talking about Paul Maneri's baseball team, and you'll rattle off to me his 4th and 5th starters. I love it. Your knowledge knows no bounds. 10 on the shot clock. Thornwell baseline. Kisses it in. Sindarius Thornwell with an 11-point first half.
Just blue collar. I mean, he came in, he's clocked his ticket in, and he came to work.
Lakely scoreless in his first half. Here's Jenkins. Too late. Won't count. And South Carolina puts a 50-burger on the floor here in the first half. Sindarius Thornwell with 11 of those 50, as efficient as you would hope to be. He's more efficient than Peter Burns' dishwasher. 50-32 is the lead here at the PMAC. South Carolina looking like a top 20 team. Let's get you back to the studio. Here is Peter Burns. Welcome back to Baton Rouge. Tom Hart, Damian Fishback. We talk a lot about South Carolina's defense, but they're halfway to 100 with their offense tonight. Fish, it's time for everybody out there to sit up, take notice of what South Carolina does and what they do well.
Well, let's take a look at their keys to success. It starts on this defensive end. You mentioned it. It's your guy right here, Tom Hart, Dwayne Notice. He sets the tone on the defensive end, and they help early and often. Look at him causing this turnover. We talked about it earlier, how they use the sideline as an additional defender. And then look at him offensively. Not always the best, but when they miss it, Frank Martin Staple going to the offensive glass. Blakeney knows he does not box out. And then when you take bad shots against South Carolina, they're going to lead to offensive transition points. Look at this. They're already behind on the defensive end, LSU. It's a 3-on-2 break with LSU. Now, as they go forward, there's only one way to catch up. DeWalt Breathe would either have to try to get in front of Sindarius Thornwell, or you've got Antonio Blakeney, and he's got to try to guard two guys. Impossible to do. A give and go. P.J. Dozier gives it back to Sindarius Thornwell, and we know what that is. Easy like Sunday morning.
Give and go. And look at this. Give and take, but they give it right back. And a dump off inside results in an offensive foul on Jalen Patterson. That is his first. Foul trouble was an issue early for LSU in this game.
Well, this is an example of the Gamecocks speeding you up. A nice job by Sindarius Thornwell outside of the semi-arc, giving up his body, or Dozier, I'm sorry, and drawing the foul. I've seen Thornwell do so much.
I agree. Sometimes you just expect number 0 to be in the thick of things for the Gamecocks.
Well, and those two guards together, both 6'5" and 6'6", make a huge difference on both ends because of their size. They're bigger guards.
Nice close up by DeWalt Reith, who has the takeaway. Aaron Epps only played 2 minutes in the first half after picking up his second foul. He starts the second half for LSU. Coming up top to offer a screen. Instead, Patterson turns it over. Threw it right to Dwayne Notice, a senior from Woodbridge, Canada. Dozier, transition, triple, no. And it comes down to LSU. Listen, let's be frank about it. LSU's defensive numbers have been really ugly in conference play. I was shocked that South Carolina, a team that scores 72 points a game, put up 50 in the first half. But when you consider that LSU allows 91.5 points per game in conference action, then you start to understand why South Carolina was so efficient in the first half. Kotsar picks up his third personal. And another one coming for Jalen Patterson, the junior from Atlanta. Played his high school ball at Montverde. Of course, Johnny Jones found a great one there. And Ben Simmons. He also played with D'Angelo Russell at Montverde. Took over the point guard duties when Russell got injured his final year there. They won 2 national championships. Here's Kotsar. South Carolina makes you start your offense 25 feet from the hoop.
Well, they pressure you, but this is what you have to do. You have to get past their first line of defense. As you see, a nice mid-range jump shot by DeWalt Reed. If you can get past their first line of defense, because they help early, you're going to have open looks against South Carolina.
Kotsar working on Reed to the left. Nothing there. Tries it again. Now Silva. Oh. Epps picks up his 3rd. Disbelief there from Epps, maybe for good reason. On the other side, LSU on offense.
Well, and this is what we talk about when we look at the way teams can attack. You get past that first line of defense. Watch how early Chris Silva steps up to help. He tries to step up early, and as a result, he's got to try to recover to DeWalt Reed as a result. And that wasn't even a large gap like it usually is with South Carolina. But if you can get past that, you can score against this Gamecock team.
Mike Kotsar is another free throw coming. I mean, obviously, that's easier said than done. That's the blueprint. But then to do it is a whole another animal. We saw in the Kentucky game, early on when De'Aaron Fox was healthy, before he turned his ankle, he was able to get penetration primarily with his speed. Sure. But I thought that was a great example of it. The funny part is there's only one De'Aaron Fox.
No doubt about it.
If you had to face him every night, maybe it'd be a different story.
Yeah, but the key is, there's defensive pressure. Right here, if you're Jalen Patterson, you have to provide offensive pressure. Be strong with the basketball. Try to attack. You cannot allow yourself to be passive or lose poise on this end.
Blakeney for 3. He still hasn't scored tonight. And then a foul on the rebound will go against LSU and against Brian Bridgewater, his 2nd. When do we get to do real talk? Are we going to do that tonight?
What do you want to do real talk, Tom?
I just think we need to drop some knowledge on people.
There's a lot that's transpired since our previous real talk.
We get so many directions we could go tonight. You know who's waiting for real talk? I got a tweet from him. Dane Bradshaw is refusing to change the channel tonight until we hit real talk. He is confident that you're going to give props to his Tennessee program at real talk. We've gotten to the point now where expectations have been raised and people are actually sending in requests for real talk. Here's Kotsar, and he had a foot on the end line and turns it over.
Well, and for LSU, a lot of times their initial defense is okay. Their problem tonight has been securing and completing the defensive trip with the defensive rebound.
Well, it's been good in the second half. They've held South Carolina to an 0-for-5 start from the floor. Turnovers an issue for Johnny Jones's team in the first half. And they've already turned it over 3 times here in the second half, but South Carolina has turned it over 4 times. Hey, you want some good news? Ryan Luce, the daughter of Missouri assistant Brad Luce, who's fighting cancer. They got the Rally for Ryan game coming up against LSU in a couple weeks in Columbia at Mizzou. She was discharged from the hospital in Manhattan today. So congratulations to the Luce family as she continues to fight neuroblastoma. She's only 6 years old. Silva! Oh, tried to tomahawk a second one and went back rim. Here's Sampson out front. Here comes LSU.
Like Pat Bradley said, Tom Hart, pump your brakes, pump your brakes. This LSU team, like Gang of New York right now, all they need, what did Leonardo DiCaprio say? A spark.
you and Leo, never go full Leo. Kotsar off the glass. That's his first bucket of the night. The push, and Thornwell got a fingertip on it to take it away. LSU's tried that a couple times tonight, hasn't worked.
So very important here if you're South Carolina to keep your habits. Make sure that you continue to take care of the basketball and be strong.
South Carolina 1 for 7 from the floor in the second half. Blakeney gets his first bucket, and LSU back to a 12-point deficit. Notice tries to reverse it and won't roll home, but he'll go to the line after the foul from Jalen Patterson. 52-40. Sitting defensive effort from LSU in the second half. You know what else we'll get right after this break? We're going to get some real talk with Tom and Damian.
These two could be a problem. They can hit from anywhere.
They're going down.
We got a plan for them.
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments, there's one of these.
These two could be a problem. They can hit from anywhere.
They're going down.
We got a plan for them.
Talk to an agent for help combining your home and auto into a plan that's right for you. Here to help life go right. State Farm.
AT&T offers all your live channels and DVR on your devices data-free. It's entertainment your way.
All right, the final piece. A little to the left.
Our trip to SEC country was amazing.
Yeah, it was. So many great people, and man, can they tailgate.
It's official. SEC in the house.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Let's go make some sausage.
Man, let's go. It's the segment that's taken the SEC by storm, or at least a rain cloud. It's Real Talk with Tom and Damian, and our subject tonight is the perception of the SEC, and it goes back to that old saying, don't judge a book by its first chapter, right? Because the first chapter written by the SEC this season was a chapter of missed opportunities.
Well, there were a lot of people that I thought had a negative perception about the SEC before. And the reason why they had a negative perception was because of the missed opportunities in the non-conference schedule. UCLA beating Kentucky at home, Gonzaga against Florida, North Carolina over Tennessee, Arizona, Texas A&M, Dayton over Alabama, just to name a few. But now the SEC has left their mark. You had the Big 12 versus SEC challenge. Look at those quality wins against other power conferences that you now see. I think the perception still has to continue to be changed, but we finally saw the national perception start to change a little bit, and I think it was long overdue.
The SEC Big 12 Challenge was split, 5 wins for each, and that was out without the SEC's second-best team, South Carolina, playing in the challenge. They had a conference game against Missouri last weekend. Here's Dwayne Notice at the free throw line. There's some key wins last weekend. Of course, maybe the Auburn and TCU game was the biggest. And Kansas State, I thought, going on the road to Tennessee as a tournament team, had a lot to prove, and Tennessee was never challenged in that game. Now there's Rick Barnes' team is getting into the conversation. They're climbing onto the bubble here if they can keep this thing going.
Well, I think Joe Lunardi had them in his first 4 out, and as a result of some quality wins of this league, as you see Patterson missed that 3, a quality win like Auburn going and winning at TCU, that win at Auburn last night looked substantially different, and it should, because these teams continue to improve and get better throughout the year, and a lot of that has came from the strength of schedule from this league.
Thornwell with the offensive foul. That's his first for a South Carolina team that has turned it over 6 times already here in the second half. You know, Real Talk is, if you divide the season, as we all do, into 3 parts, right?
Sure.
You get the non-conference, conference, and then postseason. The reality of it is, with the SEC Big 12 Challenge being pushed back so late in the season, and I thought it was a fantastic television event, going all the way to the finale at Rupp with Kentucky and Kansas, with that great Kansas comeback in the second half. The reality is, you couldn't close the book on the first third of the season until last Saturday. And you'd look at it as a whole now, the non-conference, and all of a sudden, it's a lot more impressive within the league, within the SEC.
Sure. Well, and I think when you look at the beginning, and we'll talk more about this when we come back, but the bottom line is, just like Johnny Jones is feisty right now, so is this conference. They're hungry for wins.
That's Real Talk from Johnny Jones.
Charles Alexander, also known as Alexander the Great, a two-time All-American running back at LSU.
Look at the moves by Alexander.
He was the 1977 SEC Player of the Year before finishing 5th in the 1978 Heisman voting. Alexander held 27 school records when he left LSU and was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2012. SEC Network celebrates Alexander's contributions to his sport and Louisiana State University.
To achieve financial security, there are two halves to consider: protect and grow. Instead of focusing on insurance or investments alone, we bring them together into one whole picture. At Northwestern Mutual, we guide you along your path by combining personalized investments and world-class insurance. That's one of the reasons 96% of our clients stay with us year after year. At Northwestern Mutual, we help you live life differently.
SEC Network Basketball is brought to you by Regions Bank, proud to be the official bank of the SEC. Tom Hart, Damian Fishback in Baton Rouge. It's a 17-point lead for South Carolina. Johnny Jones, the LSU head coach, got teed up a moment ago right before we were going to break, so a technical foul against Johnny. We think this is why he was upset. A no call on the drive by Sampson. It may have looked worse to Johnny from his perspective than it looked to us on the replay. And you know, one of the frustrations as a coach in that scenario is you don't get the whistle you think maybe you deserve, right. And then on the other end, South Carolina drills a three.
Well, it's a combination of everything, right? Let's be candid. I mean, LSU is a team that has been struggling of late. You talk about 7 losses in a row, and Coach Johnny Jones is not accustomed to this. You talk about a guy who went to the Final Four as a player, did it as well as on the coaching staff. I mean, he's accustomed to winning, and so he's trying to motivate his team. He's trying to show his team that he'll fight for his team. But as far as the play himself, I think that Chris Silver jumped straight up. I think it was the right call.
So Dwayne Notice to the free throw line. 2 shots coming for the technical foul. Notice has 11. And South Carolina able to extend its advantage up by 19. Possession back to LSU after the technical free throws. Well, why has this team been so hard for Johnny Jones to figure out this season?
Youth and inexperience. I mean, you look at the lack of experience on this team. The guy with the basketball right now, freshman Dewalt Reese, junior college, his first year here. First time playing under Coach Johnny Jones. You look at Brandon Sampson, the only guy on the floor right now with significant experience is Antonio Blakeney. And so you look at year over year what he's done since he got here the first year, finished middle of the pack, 19 wins, 20 wins the second year, went to the tournament as we talked about. Last year had a chance. I think the expectations were high because of Ben Simmons. And this is just one of those years where the guys do not have a lot of experience. And what we just talked about, the league is pretty good.
Because of the frustrations at the end of last season, including a blowout loss to Texas A&M in the SEC tournament, and the aforementioned Simmons, LSU decided not to participate in a postseason tournament after they didn't qualify for the NCAA tournament. They could have played in the NIT. Now that you look back at that, in hindsight, which is always 20/20, and you consider the fact that they're a team that lacks experience, would that have benefited this LSU team to go play in the NIT no matter how many games you would have gotten out of it?
You know, as a player, you always want an opportunity to play another game, but Coach Johnny Jones had told us you had Blakeney with 100 and something fever. You had the situation going on with Ben Simmons, who we know was ready to go to the next level. You had Keith Hornsby that was out. There were questions of who could play. I think they just wanted to put that season behind them, and I think he was really protecting the players as much as anybody.
Blakeney commits a foul that's his first. Mike Kotsar will return, and Silva gets a breather. It should have been last year in many ways with Tim Quarterman, who's now in the NBA. Ben Simmons, the #1 overall pick. It should have been a season of celebration here at LSU.
Sure.
It just simply did not work out that way for a variety of reasons, including Hornsby's early injury.
Now you look at Hornsby's injuries, you look at a guy like Craig Victor, who is a huge reason that we haven't mentioned why LSU has struggled as well. You look at a guy like Craig Victor, who brought defense, who completed defense with rebounds, who brought some leadership. Him being gone hurts them tremendously as well.
Notice having a great offensive game tonight after we touted his defense in the first half. He's got 14. The lead is 21 for South Carolina. Skylar Mays is a freshman. Here's Blakeney. Into the corner to Mays. Passed off on the first shot and then turned it over. Tonight after the game on the SEC ESPN Network, join our analysts as they discuss all the SEC news of the day on SEC Now. And also stream it live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN.
You know, I saw Pat Bradley doing a game, and looks like his stroke's still there. I wonder who would win between Pat Bradley and Tony Delk in a shooting competition.
I would. Kidding?
You're taking Tom Hart, huh?
Yeah. I saw Tony on a flight a couple weeks ago, and he was wearing his stocking cap so low I was afraid he couldn't see. I thought he was going to run right into me when we were boarding the plane. Felder looking for an assist, and he got it on the three from Justin Mackey.
Listen, you can talk about the ineffectiveness or inefficiency of the defense by LSU, but South Carolina is playing good basketball on the offensive end tonight.
It's a 12-0 run for South Carolina. Let me give you a blow-your-mind stat. Over the last 10 games, LSU has allowed 16 runs of 9-0 or worse. That includes a 16-0 run by Missouri in the lone win in that span. That is a defense that loses focus, and probably you could say it's a defense that that loses confidence. You get beat once, and then just kind of snowballs on it.
Well, what you look for is one guy on the team who can set an example. Even when you run basketball camps, you try to bring a kid up and say, hey, everybody else watch how he does it or she does it. LSU doesn't have anyone to do that right now. They have to find somebody and do it quickly.
Here's Felder, and the freshman has his shot blocked, but before that, he's able to pick up the foul, and he'll go to the free throw line. It's the second on Skylar Mays. We talk a lot in this league about what it takes to rebuild, and there's no doubt, especially considering what LSU lost last year, losing Craig Victor, dismissing him from the team before the calendar turned to 2017, that this is a program in a rebuilding mode. You've been through that. You went through that as a player at Auburn. You really, over 4 years, played on 4 distinctly different teams. What are the differences among them?
Well, first of all, on your successful teams, you always have leadership. Coach Ellis, who was our coach then, got National Coach of the Year when we won the SEC Championship and were #1 seed. But he was a quality coach in the other 3 years that we played as well. We were young our freshman year. Our sophomore year, we didn't have a lot of depth, only 6 scholarship players.
You were bad at your freshman year. You were young and you weren't very good relative to what you built into.
Correct. Young and bad. A lot of times they go together.
Yes.
But you forget about it in this conference because you got a team like Kentucky who's young and good year in and year out.
Kotsar with his 4th personal foul, as opposed to you. You're just bad and bougie. It's a 25-point lead for South Carolina here in the BR.
Friday Night Heights. Perfect balance. High-flying precision. Elite competition.
How about that? The 10 comes in. Wow, what a night.
This week, the 10th-ranked Wildcats take on the 9th-ranked Bulldogs. Then, the 3rd-ranked Gators meet the 6th-ranked Tide. Kentucky, Georgia at 7, presented by Belk. Florida, Alabama at 8:30. Friday on the SEC Network.
I used to love going to sports bars for honey barbecued chicken, but now I'm doing the dad thing.
Yeah, he is.
So we go to DQ for the honey barbecue glazed chicken strip basket. It's got 100% all-white meat chicken strips tossed in my favorite honey barbecue glaze for a sweet and smoky punch of flavor. Plus, I get Texas toast, fries, and ranch. I like this dad thing.
I like this blizzard thing.
The all-new sauced and tossed honey barbecue glazed chicken strip basket. Only at DQ. This is fan food, not fast food. Enjoy drinks and $2 pretzels during happy hour.
Yo, Dad. You want to give a shout out? I want to make a shout out.
These are nice. I'm the kid man over here.
Gang, gang. So who at Nightline was like, oh, we need to talk about Black Lives Matter. Let's get a little win. All right.
Dinosaurs didn't even roar. They honked.
President Cheeto. The human pumpkin. Cheeto and cheese.
Yeah.
How come you don't watch this show, Donald Trump? He don't pay for Vice now. He's cheap.
Well, we don't like blind resumes as much anymore. This is a blind projection. You can see the resumes of all of these teams, UCLA, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, and South Carolina. They're very similar in many ways. And you would think, well, gosh, Joe Lunardi must have all of these teams right about the same seed line for the NCAA tournament. But au contraire, there's a big difference in the way Joe Lunardi, and therefore, as he projects the committee, would view these four teams. What's the difference?
Well, you know, with Joe Lunardi, we believe it's the perception and what the analytics have stated as far as the SEC right now. But you see the difference in the seeding. You look at a team like UCLA, RPI about the same, wins against the top 25 about the same. South Carolina actually a couple of more wins versus the RPI and a better strength of schedule, but right now a 2 seed. Probably because of their quality of wins, but I think more because of the perception that the Pac-12 having 3 or 4 elite teams in Arizona, Oregon, and of course UCLA being looked at as much better than South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky. The question is there really that much difference, the difference in 2 seeds? Because this South Carolina team, if you have Thornwell the entire year, could possibly be undefeated.
You know, I think there's a difference in the tournament in 1 seed, and I think that's something that the tournament committee is going to solve going forward when they start using composite rankings as opposed to leaning so heavily on the RPI. And I've got him in my phone as Joey Brackett, so I reached out to him this afternoon. I said, explain this to me, why you would have South Carolina so far down the road from a seeding perspective when their resume looks very similar to, if not better than, some of these 3 teams. And he said, well, when you consider the composite rankings that he uses to help fill out his bracket, RPI, right, BPI, KPI, that's Ken Palm and Sagarin, it's Wisconsin's the best ranked among those, ahead of UCLA, then Notre Dame, and South Carolina would be about 11 spots behind Wisconsin. I mean, listen, we're getting into a bunch of numbers and math geeks, and Frank Martin may have been a math teacher, but he doesn't really care for analytics in that regard. The bottom line is that South Carolina nationally is still not getting the respect we think they deserve based on people who have seen them play multiple times this season.
Well, it's funny. Joe Lunardi last year at the end of the season said, just win, baby. And so if you're in the SEC, if you're in any conference, you keep winning and people will notice. You know, I talked about Tennessee a month ago, and now you see Frank Martin, him doing what he did at South Carolina year by year, improving, like Johnny Jones is hoping to do after this year. But if you're Tennessee and Coach Rick Barnes, you have continued to improve night in and night out. You improved before you beat Kentucky, before you knocked off Kansas State. And so I think that's what this league is trying to do as a whole.
Last year, Frank Martin's team got off to a 15-0 start. They finished the season with an RPI of 65. They had 11 wins in conference, but they had 2 very costly losses in the league. On the road at Tennessee and on the road at Missouri. They played a great schedule in reality. And they found 25 wins. I think you're going to compare leagues versus leagues. You would look at an 11-win team in the SEC and say, wait a second, they won 11 out of their 18 conference games. They're not in. Yet a team out of the ACC could go 9-9 and be in. And a lot of that has to do with the numbers, and a lot of that, quite frankly, has to do with the perception of the basketball being played in this. If we're going to say that, that's fair. Well, then let's start to give credit for teams in the SEC who beat Georgia Tech. Let's give credit to Georgia. Let's give credit to Tennessee, who hammered Georgia Tech, right? Let's give credit to the South Carolina team for knocking off Syracuse, which is playing a lot better right now, and just knocked off number 6 Florida State.
Sure, and you have to take a look at a different Georgia Tech team. Josh Pastner doing a phenomenal job. But again, I think you have to make sure that you're looking at it over the entire season. That's why you make the point that if you take a look at the SEC now, it looks tremendously different than it did before. And one thing the SEC doesn't get credit for as well are the Monmouth games, the Valpos, the Middle Tennessees, the Chattanoogas. That's why I love to look at the strength of schedule, because if that's what the committee is looking at, then I think you have to take a hard look at more than 4 teams in this league, which I think they are now doing.
Gay commits a foul. It's his first. By the way, Kermit's doing a great job at Middle. They're 9-0 in their league. Skylar Mays to the free throw line, freshman from Baton Rouge. University High, we won a couple of state championships from grades 8 through his junior year. Then went out to Vegas and played at Findlay Prep. Back rims that one, but Sims, the legacy here at LSU, is able to put it back up and in. He's got a half dozen. Sims was a teammate of Mays at U-High. Out front. And Mays couldn't stay in bounds. Stepped on the in line. Couple of starters returning from South Carolina. P.J. Dozier and Sindarius Thornwell.
You know, Tom, you mentioned this off the air that South Carolina looks like a team versus LSU looks like a bunch of players trying to become a team. And that, just like that last pass to Skylar Mays, guys just aren't used to playing with one another. And when you take a guy in or take a guy off your team like a Craig Victor, it takes time. The question is, and this is what I'm looking for from LSU, are you playing hard? Are you trying to get better throughout 40 minutes of play? And I think that's what Coach Jones is looking at too.
If you're a coach and you get a feeling that your players aren't playing hard, what can you do? I mean, he went deep into his bench in the first 10 minutes of this game. I don't know if that was an effort frustration or an execution frustration.
Sure.
You know, that's something to ask him after the game. But there's only so many guys in uniform. I mean, Edelstone is getting run tonight, and he typically doesn't get for a variety of reasons. Number one, Epps got into foul trouble early. But also, you think that Johnny Jones is trying to figure something out about this team here on February 1st.
Sure. Well, the first thing you can do is what every player hates, which is sit them over on the bench. I think the second thing that you have to do is truly look and see if it is effort or are they just learning on the job. Most freshmen don't come into college basketball knowing how to play hard and certainly don't know how to play defense. They have to learn that. And the question is, how quickly can LSU learn it?
You know what I love about working with you? Is the Real Talk segment was supposed to last like 2 minutes. It's been like this entire second half. Blakeney splashes down a 3. That's his first triple. All 7 of his points have come after half. And he'll go to the line, try to make it a 4-point play.
Well, and you see on this offensive end, they're talented. Antonio Blakeney, McDonald's All-American, nice stroke, the ability to knock down the shot. They just have to gain some confidence and get what Coach Johnny Jones talked about, some small victories.
Dozier leaves his man behind, and then a foul on the drive will go against South Carolina. We've got gymnastics every Friday on the SEC Network. This week, number 10 Kentucky against 9th-ranked Georgia at 7 o'clock from Stegman Coliseum, presented by Belk. Then at 8:30, number 3 Florida and number 6 Alabama in the annual Power Pink Meet at Coleman Coliseum. Can't wait to see what color Bart Connor's scarf is going to be on Friday night. Friday Night Heights also streaming live on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN.
See Kennedy Baker, SEC Specialist of the Week
she's
for
one
Florida.
Of your favorites. I know that. Dozier just committed his 3rd foul, offensive foul. Edelstone will put up a 3. Beautiful rotation.
Big shot. Love to see that trifecta from the senior from Slidell, Louisiana.
That is his first 3-pointer of the season. That is only the 2nd 3-pointer for the product of North Shore High School in his entire career. He only had 3 minutes played all season coming into this game. Look at this guy. He's been shooting like this entire life.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, right? If you have an aggressive team and you can get through it, then it makes a difference. If you can get out of the trap, if you can get away from the pressure, you'll get open looks.
Edelstone follows it up by committing his first personal foul. It's also his first personal foul of the season. So, groundbreaking game for the big fella. Silva knocks the second one down. 14 for Chris Silva. Sims lost it, gathers. Silva's got it to Notice. Looking for Thornwell. He'll take it himself. Silva one-hand jam.
And that's what you can't take. If I'm Johnny Jones, I'm livid. The run back wasn't there. There was no box out. You've got to display some fight against this South Carolina team like that.
Sims with the answer. His dad Wayne played here in the late 80s. SEC championship game in '91. It's championship team, I should say. Thornwell, quick move to the baseline. We were joking with Johnny Jones today about young kids and their desire to play offense versus defense.
You read my mind.
Right? We saw the energy going down to the offensive end. You don't see it going down to the defensive end. That's not just LSU, folks. I mean, that is youth throughout college basketball, throughout all of basketball. But Johnny was having a laugh with it. He said, yeah, you know, the floor's slanted. You have to go back to play defense. You have people don't realize this. You have to run uphill. Dozier's got 16.
Frankly, this looks like some of the AAU games you see where young high school players just want to play one in. And if you continue to do that, you'll continue to lose.
Mays has 9. This LSU team's got to go to Kentucky on Tuesday the 7th. And Sean Farnham is watching this game from his hotel in Gainesville right now. He already has a stomach bug, so he's sick enough. But then he's watching the game and he's thinking, how am I going to handle this when LSU goes in the rough? Because if they want to just get in a shootout and run with Kentucky, it may be a record-breaking kind of night for John Calipari's.
Well, the good news for LSU is that they won't be facing a top 5 defensive team in the nation, but they're going to be facing a pretty good team too.
It's all relative, right? Talking about good news. Good day here in Baton Rouge. National Signing Day on the football side. I want to know who Todd Harris is talking to when these hats are being set up.
In 1916, Warren Miller chose auto owner's insurance for his new car. In 1947, his son made the same choice, as did his grandson in 1979. And today, his great-granddaughter did the same. As we celebrate 100 years, we're grateful to our independent agents and to those who have put their trust in us, and to the generations who will. Auto Owners Insurance.
In for new razor?
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much. I don't really need anything fancy.
Well, right here's about your only option.
Is it any good?
Come on. What do you expect for a couple bucks? Lobster? I'll get the paperwork started.
Hey, man, don't settle for that shave when you can ride off on this for about the same price.
Try any amazing razor for $1 with free shipping at dollarshaveclub.com.
Well, National Signing Day today was a success here in Baton Rouge. Ed Orgeron pulled in the 7th best class in the country. It's the 3rd best class by a new head coach since we started tracking this stuff in 2006. Urban Meyer in Ohio State had one of those in 2012. Jimbo in Florida State had one in 2010. And of the 14 top 300 recruits LSU signed today, only 4 of them are from within the state. So that's breaking a trend. We got 23 top 300s, 23 total commitments. This is the ESPN 300 recruiting rankings. Alabama #1 again for the 5th time in the last 6 years. 21 top 300 recruits for Alabama. Georgia and Kirby Smart had a great day. They signed 4 5-stars. And the SEC as a whole, Damian, listen to this. Talk about building. 100 of the ESPN top 300 signed with SEC schools.
Whew. That's not only building, that's maintaining and continuing to accelerate.
What's Antonio Petty talking to Johnny Jones about here?
Well, I'm sure Johnny Jones is still, after that technical foul, you know, he's still trying to get explanations on every call. I truly think that it was a combination of trying to get his guys going, with him having some frustration with the call, fighting for his basketball team. Listen, when you're a coach, it's like being a chef in the kitchen. If the meal's not working, you got to keep trying different ingredients to try to get something that tastes good. And right now, this doesn't taste good what LSU's putting on the floor.
I'm pretty sure that was the basis for the movie Ratatouille. Corner 3. Yep. Dwayne Notice with 17 tonight. If he can give them offense like that with giving them great defense, could be a difference maker in the South Carolina team, and he already is defensively. Kieran Harewood is on the floor for LSU, the Australian. Ball at the top of the key. Had a great talk with Kieran and shoot around today. I wanted him to give me the best basketball player out of Australia in all-time Australian history, and he was befuddled. He goes, man, you know, in his beautiful Australian accent, he's like, yeah, I don't know, mate. I have to think about it. You know, I go back to Andrew Gaze, right? I mean, he's a hero in Australia.
Sure.
Won the title with against Ramil Robinson. No, they finished second. Pardon me. Ramil Robinson beat him at the free throw line when Gaze was at Seton Hall. Played on all those great Olympic teams. He said, yeah, it's kind of before my time. Patty Mills was his favorite player.
That's surprising.
Coming up down under. There's been some great players out of Australia lately,
a lot of times on the West Coast. So a lot of times we don't get a chance to see him.
Dante Exum, Patty Mills, Matthew Dellavedova. He's like, listen, Delly's the best defensive player by far. Reeve has it blocked.
Definitely the grittiest
player. You say that it's almost like you're using that in a derogatory way, like you're not a fan of Matthew Dellavedova. He's a guy that can get under your skin. There's no doubt about that.
I love gritty players. Toughness, grit. That's what this South Carolina team is doing. They just impose their will on you, and that's what Dellavedova does. And right now, LSU needs somebody a little meaner, a little tougher, that is going to test the opponent.
There's Blakeney. You thinking they could use a guy like Greg Cook? Johnny Jones was telling us Greg Cook stories today, an enforcer on that Final Four team, and he said, listen, Rudy Macklin was a great player. He could get his shots, but he wouldn't have been the player he was without a guy like Greg Cook working as the enforcer. I mean, just the stories were incredible. You couldn't get away with that stuff these days. If for nothing else, they go to the monitor so much, the guy would have never finished a game.
Yeah, the rules in the game now don't allow for many bad boys like the Detroit Pistons or the New York Knicks anymore. But
how funny was it, though, when Johnny was telling the story, and Kent Lowe, their fantastic sports information director, walked up in the middle of the story without having any idea, and without hearing Greg Cook's name, Kent just kind of looked over and goes, talk about Greg Cook, huh? Yep, talking about Greg Cook. Great Rudy Macklin. One of 4 retired numbers here for the LSU men's basketball program.
I'm all that techie stuff you got crammed into your brand new car. I'm so sexy, you can't keep your hands off me. Do it again. There you go. I can do whatever you want, except keep your eyes on the road.
Now would be a good time to have new car replacement.
So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
It's good to be in good hands.
From your first car to your first kiss, to the places that shape you. The decisions you make you who you are. Create your custom engagement ring at Ratani.com. You design it, we handcraft it, you see it in person at your local jeweler. No risk, no obligation. Ratani, a smarter way to buy an engagement ring. Start today at Ratani.com.
Tom Hart with Damian Fishback. Let's talk about this South Carolina defense. Best in the SEC, one of the best in the country.
Sure, well, you watch the way they play defense, and the key is they never take a play off. They harass you like a pack of hyenas when they see some food, Tom. And when you look at their three-point defense, so critical, you're just not getting three-pointers. You remember the Florida game when Florida went 0 of 17. I think it was the first time in over 850 games. And you see Coach Frank Martin right there. He's looking at the statistics, realize that the data will end up displaying the wins and losses.
20 turnovers for LSU. South Carolina's turned those turnovers into 30 points. Rand Tutt, number 14, has entered the game for South Carolina. Junior from Melbourne, Australia now, but he's got a family connection in this game right now. Tutt gets his first run of the night, a 6'9" transfer out of Monroe College, and his cousin, Dwop Reith, is right across the lane from him. Reith, number 1, made his home in Perth, Australia. And here's the connection. Not only are they cousins,
right,
but they have both of their families have been through a lot. They were both born in the South Sudan, and their families escaped that ongoing civil war to go to Australia. Reith was 9 years old when his family did so. Tutt was roughly the same age, and here they are from Sudan to Australia to SEC basketball, cousins on the same floor.
Keeps things in perspective. Life is good, and you know it's exciting for them to have an opportunity to compete against one another.
I don't know if Dwop Reith is going to shoot a lot of threes this season, but maybe he wanted to show his cousin what he got. I'd like them to guard each other, but Reith's playing the 5. Tutt's at the 4 right now. Evan Hinson is also on the floor for South Carolina. Frank Martin's able to go deep into his bench. Here's Kadeem Gay. It's blocked by Reith. Great defensive effort from the LSU big man. Blakeney. No. And by the way, that brings our total to 3 Australians on the floor right now with Hayward out there. Next Tuesday, SEC Network, we got another hoops doubleheader. Alabama and South Carolina at 6:30 Eastern. Then following that in Fayetteville, they had a great crowd tonight in Arkansas. Big win. Arkansas plays host to Vandy. You can also see him live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN.
Well, Arkansas played with a sense of urgency tonight against an Alabama team that has been rolling. Coach Avery Johnson, been right there all year. You look at Oregon, a tough game on the road at Texas. We talked about the Dayton loss. They're a dangerous team, so I was very impressed with the way that Arkansas came out and took care of business.
Did you see all the airtime that John Pelfrey got during the broadcast? My former broadcast partner. That's what happens. You get more airtime when you're not on television, when you're not working in television. Hayward has one rim out. They did the same thing on Big Monday a couple weeks ago, last week, with Darren Horn. Now at Texas, another former partner of mine. And it's, you know, I don't know if this is a good sign or not, Damian. I don't know where you're going to end up after this year. We got another former partner of mine in the building tonight who's going to get his airtime that he purchased from us, Super Scout Matt Doherty. Tutt with his first bucket. Hayward lets it fly. Nothing there. Well, tough stretch for Hayward. He hasn't made a field goal in the last 5 games now. 0 for his last 10.
And right now LSU is searching. Obviously, listen, this is going to be another one in the L column. At the end of the day, they'll have to go back to the film room just like they did yesterday and today. And this young, inexperienced team will have to continue to try to get better.
Let's take a look at tonight's Good Hands play, brought to you by Allstate.
Well, we talk about some fight being displayed, and Mr. Sims displayed some earlier today. Again, that was freshman to freshman for our All-State Good Hands play. And this team, the question is, if I'm evaluating LSU, I want to see where you're going to be come March, because I think when you get to March and when we get to Nashville, this is going to be one of the most electric, surprising, awestruck SEC tournaments that we have ever seen, simply because of so many teams that can win it. You look at the improvement of Tennessee. We look at South Carolina here. We look at Kentucky, obviously, that turns it into Cashville every single year. But I think this will be one of the more exciting years we've ever seen.
You didn't mention a Georgia team, which nearly knocked off Kentucky at Rupp Arena last night. So I agree with you. The depth is starting to become very, very evident in this league. Gay commits his second personal foul. And 2 shots coming for Edelstone, who's playing a career high in minutes tonight. He's got 5 points. 3 minutes all season long. And Edelston's played 10 tonight. Good for him.
Well, there was ample opportunity for South Carolina to come into this game and be overconfident or arrogant. We didn't see that at all.
No, but they did play very confident in the first 5 minutes of this game. Their defense turned LSU over. Things got really easy on the offensive end. And it's rare to see, I think speaks to South Carolina's specialty, to see a team draw so much confidence from their defense. Kind of like teams you mentioned before, as Tuck gets a bucket, Virginia, Louisville, West Virginia,
Arkansas, sure.
2 buckets for Tutt tonight. He's got 4. Uncontested for Mays to take him into double figures. South Carolina will take its SEC record to 8-1 in the side of Frank Martin's first ever SEC win. It's their first win here at the PMAC since January of 2013. South Carolina gets 34 points off of turnovers. That's a season high for the Gamecocks. Their defense, the difference once again tonight. Our final score, number 19, South Carolina 88, LSU 63. Coming up next, it's SEC Now. So long from Baton Rouge. Get you back to the studio right about now.